This is so strange, and it's so it took us a lot of time to actually get into it, but we are finally here.
Indeed.
Welcome back to our YouTube channel, Babes I've Been There. My name is Amanda, and I'm with
I'm Jerry.
Hi guys. So
Hi.
Jerry and I have decided to switch things up a little bit because of obviously us being in separate countries. The main idea initially would have been great if we're in the same idea to like have this YouTube channel where we meet and have discussions, but we had to work with what we had at the beginning, and that was to have a topic and then do individual videos. But we later discovered that honestly, like, this is just not working out. We don't like the idea of us sitting and looking at the camera. I don't think that the conversations are as fruitful as we would want them to be, or we kind of not enjoying what we're doing, right, Jerry? Do you feel the same?
Yeah, definitely. It was one of those things where you're kind of just you're talking, but then you feel like you don't have someone to bounce off your ideas off of, and then you just
Right.
end up feeling like, yeah, this is just me talking.
Exactly. So we wanted to create the atmosphere where we bounce off ideas from each other and we have a normal dialogue and like a normal discussion like most people do on podcasts. I don't want to say that this is a podcast, but whatever you feel like it is, still the same thing, still having different themes every month, different topics, different discussions every month, but now we'll be doing it together. Okay, so when you guys see this video, it's gonna be New Year. So Happy New Year, everyone!
Yeah.
Happy New Year, Jerry. It will be out shortly after New Year. So I hope you guys had a good start to this new year. And while we're talking about the new year, our topic for today is: are New Year's resolutions realistic? So yeah, let me just ask you, Jerry, like, what's your idea? Have you ever done resolutions for the new year? Have you always been that person where it's like, okay, new year, new me, these are my plans, this is the person that I'm gonna be, new me, whatever I was or whoever I was last year has, on the first, I have immediately changed and transformed into this new being. Have you ever had that big plan in terms of changing your character, your goals, and whatever, and just labeling it as like, okay, these are my new year resolutions?
I think on my end, hey, as far as New Year's resolutions go, it was always, I think, the standard generic stuff, right? Of like, yeah, next year I'm gonna go to the gym. That's gonna be my new thing. I'm gonna go to the gym. I'm gonna like work out. I'm gonna like eat healthy. I think it was always more physical attributes as opposed to things that have to do with me as a person. But again, I think probably because I was just like younger in that manner, so I hadn't really thought of those things, just in terms of, oh, okay, now that the new year is coming, what do you want to do with your life? What does that look like? I think each year I was taking it as it came, but slowly but surely I started realizing, especially for the important stuff, if I did have a revelation, for example, and that revelation came in June, of, okay, actually the way that I am addressing this particular situation, or in terms of me wanting to improve a certain aspect of my life, whether it's eating, for example, like my eating habits, and I want to change that. Now, before it would be a thing of, okay, yeah, it will see me next year. Come Jan, that's the new plan. This is how I'm going to start afresh.
New
but I
me,
realized that doesn't...
New body.
Yeah, like, new me, new vibe. But the thing about it is that when you put things off, they never actually end up happening. And that was something that I came to realize that, I can't afford to keep waiting up until January comes around to be like, I'm going to implement ABC, because most times I end up forgetting anyway. And then you just end up in a situation where the thing that you wanted to improve, you didn't. So I've gone to a point where, as far as New Year's, and that's the only time where things can switch around, I'm like, no. It really depends on you. When you decide that's your point, at least for me anyway.
Do you? Because sometimes there could be this thing of resolutions or New Year's resolutions somewhat being considered or understood as maybe goals, you know, like, okay, this is my New Year's goals, New Year's resolutions, whatever. Like on my end, I actually feel like this might sound sad, but I've never really, maybe because a big chunk of my life I've spent being a student, and honestly, as a student, what really do you plan to do besides passing and getting to the next year, making sure you're passing and you have all your credits until you can eventually graduate. But I think maybe now, as a working woman, or as a being the age or the place that I am in my life, I can be more proactive in terms of how I think about my future, you know, like thinking about, okay, maybe I need to get a decent job, or, you know, just planning ahead of, you know, certain things. But in school, there really wasn't much, you know, that if you're in the program, you're in this program for the next 3 years. The only resolution is for you to eventually graduate or just get through the next semester without, you know, failing or dropping modules and stuff like that. So I've never really been one to have, like, you know, big goals. It's like, okay, new year, back to this, you know, nonsense again. Yeah, so I don't really know, like, if resolution is something that I've ever, like, adapted into my life. But I would say that, like, maybe goals, you know, like short-term goals, especially. Like, I think that's one thing that I would have, like, short-term goals. But just to go back to what you said about not waiting for the 1st of January to make changes, I think that's the important part. But then the question still stands, is it realistic then for us to create these resolutions to say, okay, next year I'm gonna be XYZ? You know what I mean? Like, does it?
I think maybe it has to do more so with creating a timestamp, you know, and then being able to maybe track the progress. And for maybe people, maybe it may be easier to be like, okay, with this particular year, this was the plan that I had, and did I execute it or not? And then the next year you start with your following plan. But I think people find it easier maybe to go with, okay, January 2021, this is when I'm starting with the plan, up until, like, you know, December 2021. Then the following year you start again, in terms of just creating a time frame. But still, in that sense, as far as then what you were saying in terms of now having a New Year's resolution, then does it have to be within the new year for it to be that goal or resolution? You have to wait for that time period for it to be like, okay, cool. Why can't you start and be like, okay, cool, if I'm starting in like, not January, what am I saying? But if you're starting in, like, June, for example, right? That's the time when you decide, okay, cool, I want to implement this goal. Then you can track it again and see where you are come June.
Exactly.
You know? Why does it have to be specifically because, you know, according to our world calendar, January is the beginning of the year,
I think
that's when you must do everything. And before that,
it really could. No. It really could be because of the whole beginning of the year thing, where you feel like, because it's like, it's with everything actually, when I think about it. Like, if you want to start eating healthy, it doesn't make sense to start on Wednesday. It's like, okay, it's Wednesday, I'm gonna eat the nonsense for the rest of the week, and then on Monday I'll start fresh on Monday, and then I'll be fine. Or if you do something and then you end up slipping, or by Thursday you didn't, you know, maintain the stamina, or maintain the type of way you plan to do things. On Thursday, maybe you decide you're not going to go to the gym. You're like, I messed up one day. I might as well not go Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Like, there's this thing of having to start, like, this habit of having to start things at the beginning of the week, instead of like, just fine, if I fall on Tuesday and Wednesday, I can still, you know, continue. It's like, it needs to be I kind of think that as humans, we may somewhat have, like, unrealistic expectations when it comes to everything, because we want to be so perfect that we do everything, like, in one go. I was so good for the whole week, I did this for the whole week, that we forget that even if I did, you know, something on Monday and Tuesday, Wednesday it wasn't that great, Thursday and Friday it was good, Saturday and Sunday it wasn't that great, or maybe even the following Monday, it's still something. Like, those few days where you were consistent in what you wanted to do, they still count as, you know, progress, or you should reward yourself or feel good about it. But because you weren't able to maintain that whole week of, you know, doing something, it feels like, oh, okay, whatever. Because then if you start at the beginning of the year and something happens maybe March, is it over now? I'm done, I'm gonna start next year. Like, you know, it's kind of unrealistic, I think, in a sense. And also just looking at the way most of the time I think that, you know, it can be a bit unrealistic if it's for particular things, because okay, December, especially in our part of the world, in South Africa, December people are partying, they are spending money, they are living the best lives. January, it's kind of like the same thing, you know, like people are still on semi-holiday. So for you to think that on the 1st of January, somewhat, you're gonna have the time to really focus on things that you want to do, like it's a bit, you know, January is a bit messy, and it takes about a month or two for people to really settle into the new year, I think.
Yeah.
So by the time it's March, that's when you feel like, oh, okay, because January was tough. I was broke. I you know, I came from holiday or whatever. February, that's when I kind of patch things up from the previous month. Now it's March. Okay, I can really start, you know, saving, doing this, doing that. Like I'm more settled, and I feel like, okay, I'm back at work. Everything makes sense. So that's probably when you really get the hang of things. Maybe, I don't know.
No, I actually agree with you. That's a very good point that you brought up, especially with regards to that aspect of you partying and, like, you know, living your best life in December. Then it's almost it is unrealistic to then be like, you went from partying, and then it's almost like you partying on Friday, and then on Saturday you're supposed to now figure out how to fix your life and how everything must suddenly, like, you know, make sense now.
Change.
Now is the time to do that, which is unrealistic. You still need the time to kind of ease out of whatever decisions you made in December. As far as you having partied, whether you ate too much, whether you did whatever it is that you did, you kind of do need that break to sort of figure things out again, get to like an equilibrium. And then from there, you can actually be like, okay, cool. Now that I'm kind of settled in again into the year, what do I want to do? What are the plans? But that's again, if you only plan like after the fact. There are some people who will start from like November already. Before the December period, they'll be like, okay, what do I want to achieve in the following year? And then December will be party. Then January will be like, okay, we're kind of mellowing out, we're chilling. And then come Feb, as you said, Feb, March, then they'll be like, okay, cool, I can start implementing this stuff. But either way, Jan is a bit unrealistic to be like, right after you were like, Happy New Year, and you were partying and you were having the vibe. Okay, guys, like, no, I'm not sure if that is actually realistic in that manner. To me, anyway, it just, it's not something that you want to do and think that it's going to really work, especially if you want it to work for the long term. You know. Especially if you wanted to work for the long term.
Yes, I totally agree. That was a bad glitch, but I understand what you were saying. So, just to ask a question, have you, like, in the past, maybe set some unrealistic resolutions, like,
have I set some
I'm leaving this behind? You know, I'm leaving this behind. I'm leaving this in 2020, or I'm leaving this in 2019, whatever, because when it comes to this year, it's just shaky. But like,
I'm wondering, actually, have I really? Because the thing is, most of my New Year's resolutions, if anything, were not even probably because of, it didn't really come from me, let me say it that way. It came from parents or your family or your friends asking, what are your New Year's resolutions?
What's your plan?
What is your plan?
What's your plan?
Then I suddenly need to pull something, figure something out, and then it would be like, okay, I'm gonna eat better, or okay, I'm gonna, like, you know, manage my time better, or okay, I'm gonna go to the gym this amount of times per week. But it was never something that I really sat and made a conscious decision about. So in terms of setting unrealistic ones, maybe the unrealisticness was the fact of me actually even just pulling something just for the sake of saying,
out of nowhere,
without actually really sitting and deciding, okay, cool, I think going to do this and being serious about it. Because all of the decisions that I've made or transitions that I decided to make in terms of improving myself were never linked to New Year's.